Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
This week we talk about Critical Role Campaign 2, Episode 124, A Walk to Warmer Welcomes.
Yes.
And before we get into it, I do want to give a shout out to Tosh on me on YouTube, pointing out that blood hunters do get a marking ability.
Yes.
So, thanks. Kicked off this episode with basically a pseudo chase.
Yeah.
I don't really say wasn't really a chase because
There was no one chasing them.
well, there was, but they couldn't really see, and I don't know. It was. I didn't quite understand how Matt was going to ratchet up the tension. And like you said, you felt like a lot happened this episode, but not a lot seemed to happen. And I think that was sort of core of it.
Yeah. It was a lot of busy interaction, no progression.
Yeah. And I think a large part of it is he didn't clearly state, okay, here's what I want you to do, or tell me how you are going to do X.
Yeah.
How are you going to escape the Tomb Takers? And because they didn't have that notion, they didn't have that concrete goal. Like, that was their goal. That's what they wanted to do. But I find often if you just phrase the question directly like that, how do you intend, like when I do overland travel a lot of the times, I will ask, how do you intend to avoid trouble?
Yep.
Because that gets them in the mindset of the skill challenge.
Yeah.
And my overland travel skill challenges are not, you go until you get 3 failures. It's just simple majority success or fail.
Yeah.
And if there's if the majority fails, then I usually have an encounter prepared. And usually they all succeed. The majority succeeds. It's very rare that the majority fail.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But not asking a question in the manner in which each character, each player, could highlight an ability, spell, skill of theirs, I think just had them bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
Although, if he had asked it that way, I don't know if he would have gotten the dropping Yasha thing, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I also have to sort of call Matt out on his powerful build adjudication.
Okay.
Because Caduceus is like, well, I could probably... Well, no, someone was like, you could carry it. Because they know he has powerful build. And he's like, I'm not... And then I think he looked at his thing and said, powerful build. And he's like, oh, well, maybe.
Yeah.
And Matt's like, well, this isn't really you're carrying in the backpack. It's you're carrying it in your hands. There's nothing in powerful build that says it has to be in a backpack.
Yeah.
So I felt Taliesin was cheated a little bit. And Laura's like, don't tell him you count as large. She was having a rough night, man.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't think she rolled... I think she rolled above a 10 once. all night, and that's a rough night. That was most of my Pathfinder experience.
Yes. Yes, it was. Yeah, and there seemed, even after they initially sorted out where they were last week, there still seemed to be some lingering confusion about who was where and who was with who for quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, they did do a few things, like you were saying, trying to hide, like Beth cast the illusion, which, sure, in the moment, that seems like a good idea, but when you think about it, that was a waste of a spell slot, because we've already evidenced that Lucian, I mean, yes, it might trick some of the others, but no. Not long enough to really be a distraction.
Yeah. Well, plus, she did it 60 feet from the turn. The snowstorm was preventing vision really out further than
past
that.
30, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was that was the other thing that Matt wasn't clear about to the players. And for 2 or maybe even 3 rounds of them rolling dice on their perception checks caused confusion.
Yeah.
Because like, well, I have dark vision. It's not because it's dark. It's because there's weather.
Yeah.
Which is a great reminder, if you want to impose disadvantage on your party, even if they have dark vision, and you're tired of them always skirting around. Weather also imposes disadvantage. And you can get the false sense of security, but also the impending enclosing of the environment. If you say out to 30, 40 feet is only lightly obscured. Beyond that, it's heavily obscured.
Yeah.
So they think, you get, okay, well, we can see this, sort of see in this area here, so we feel a little safer. And so you can play with that some.
Yeah. And the other moment I liked, other than the one you brought up, is the vet stagger. She's like, I give her the rusty one. Don't you? No, that's mine.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it except for I need it.
Yeah. And Jester finally passed the insight check that something might be a little wrong.
Yeah.
But I liked Matt. I mean, this is not the first time she has been exceptionally attached to an item.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had the realization from Caleb and Jester that Yasha and Bo are faster than them encumbered while they're flying. But they also, Matt pointed out to them, flying, no one's leaving tracks.
Yeah.
Which I think was the final thing that he was sort of waiting for to break off the pursuit. Because if the Tomb Takers lose their tracks, and they could have cast Locate Object, but as soon as the distance ahead reaches 1,000 feet,
it blips out.
Yeah. So, and that 1,000 feet is going to be 20 feet a turn. About 5 minutes of just hauling ass.
Yeah.
So once you get beyond that, they're free and clear. He did seem he didn't make it clear that it was a forced march. Constitution save.
Mm-hmm.
He made it seem more like it was the weather that they were in,
Right.
that they were having to roll. But I liked that he asked for it. And the DC, he said at 12. And I was like, well, that would be about the correct DC for forced march getting to the mountain. Because he could have just decided, because they all have pretty good constitution scores, that passively he'll give them the first one for free.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I can run faster than this. And so, in the episode, I kind of sided with Marisha.
Okay.
When she's like, well, I can run across water.
Yeah.
Can I not run across the snow? And Matt was like, no. And I was like, no, she totally could.
If anything, it's easier.
Yeah. But rules is written, Matt is correct.
Yeah.
So, while in the moment I was on Marisha's side, going back and reading the text, Matt's right.
Okay.
But I think the way that you could argue is because that ability supposes your movement is only over the water and ends on solid ground. So I would rule, this is how I would split the hair probably.
I think you're going to say exactly what I would.
While she's moving, she's on top of the snow.
Mm-hmm. Once that turn ends,
yeah.
And then she got to climb out and move.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exact. Be like, sure. You run, you get your, okay, boom. Now.
So she's leaving prints every 100,
it's going to
150
take
feet.
your move to get,
The first square is difficult terrain, say. So it costs 10 feet. So every, 80 or 90 feet, she's leaving prints.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's how I would, and that's what my brain was thinking.
Yeah.
In the moment, and while you mentioned the rules as written, I still stand by my call, and that's how I would rule it.
Yeah.
But it's not my game.
Yeah.
And I've got no problem with how it was ruled.
Yeah. And she still got to do the key point jump.
Yeah.
Thing, which is an awesome visualization. But yeah,
Although again, I would have made her time that. When are you jumping? Are you jumping at the end of your round of movement? Okay, and you're probably in over your head. And I'd make her, take, like getting up from prone style to get out of the snow at that point. She's jumping at the very end.
I mean, I think I see what you're saying, but I don't think it necessarily would matter in the sense that the gap in the tracks is there.
Correct. But my thing is that if just walking across, moving across, she's going to drop enough to make it difficult. If she's leaping and then she's got gravity force, she's going to sink deeper.
Well, she has slow fall though.
She does.
So, like the other
that doesn't change her acceleration. The name is misleading, but it says nothing about changing the acceleration of her fall.
True.
Now, if she had feather fall, okay.
Fair.
I
know. I played too many physical adepts in Shadowrun.
Yeah.
With the adept power that made it so you could walk across water and snow and anything and not leave. So I was that's why I was knee jerk. I was like, no, she should be able to do it, man. What's wrong with you? But yeah.
Oh, I don't know. My knee jerk was, why not? Oh, okay. Oh well.
Yeah, no, I was very much in Marisha's corner on that one. But they find a resting place, and I thought what he described was a perfectly good resting place.
Okay.
And like that, yeah, it's small, but it doesn't matter if you're in the dome. There's no, the way he described it, there was no easy approach.
Yeah.
To it. Whereas what Caleb found was possibly easier to get to. And I kind of, in the moment, I was not really yelling at the screen, but I was like, because we talked about this, if they find a sufficiently deep snowdrift to dig into it,
yeah,
and then cast the dome inside of it.
Yeah.
So when Matt's like, you find a bowl that's filled in with snow, I was like,
yeah, I was too. I was like, that's great.
Yeah. And they kind of did that, but not exactly.
Right.
And Veth didn't use shape water to do it, which made the later on interaction between her and Ford even funnier. But when Jester casts Locate Object in the morning,
yeah,
and Matt takes his time plodding along, describing how she's connecting with the Traveler and extending her awareness. You sense it. And everyone's like, oh. So good.
Yeah.
And an excellent example of inducing anxiety in your players, even though the news is good.
Yeah.
Burying it separate from them was also a brilliant move. Which kind of makes, like, I was thinking about MVP for this episode. And for me, it was I kind of want to give it to Laura, but also not. Because she sort of dictated the veto.
Yeah.
But the course of action was really Travis.
Yeah.
And like in both major scenes, it was him and Caduceus. It was Ford and Caduceus that were sort of driving things.
Yeah.
Laying out, here's our options, and Caduceus just saying, I'm going to bury this unless somebody physically stops me.
Yeah, for MVP, I really didn't have a pick. If I had to give it to someone, it probably would be Taliesin. But I didn't feel like anybody really took the lead to progress development, there wasn't, to me, there wasn't any real standout in this episode. So I had a hard time picking.
That's fair. And it's largely because they just talked in circles.
Yes.
For the first half, especially.
Yes, especially the first half,
Yeah, and then there was do we set these traps or not? It was nice that Matt threw them a bone, that there was extra stuff in the bag.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
What do you think of Jester's trolley problem? Where she's like, if we have it and they capture one of us, if they capture Yasha, we're going to give them the stone to get it back. And they're like, well, what if we don't have it? Then they're just going to kill her. And
would you kill her hypothetically?
Why do you want to kill Yasha? Do you think that was a valid trolley problem? Or...
I don't think it's really a trolley problem if the answer is clear. We have it. We're gonna give it to her. That it's not
Except I don't think
a dilemma there.
I don't.
Who's gonna disagree with doing that?
Caleb.
Possibly.
Well,
No. Caleb and Ford are the only two possibly,
yeah.
and even then, they're only going to put up half a fight at most.
Yeah.
It's a non-issue.
But I do think it's interesting that Jester openly admits that while she is vehemently against letting the Tomb Takers have this at all, she still is basically telling everyone, my line is, I'm not going to sacrifice any of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. They decide, well, we don't know if this will teleport to where we want it to. So maybe we should message them that we're sending it and to keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
Jester did not specify what they were sending, only that we are sending something, and you should keep it secret, safe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, I could have said keep it secret and safe. I love that bit. The sending word count mix up is continually funny. My second favorite funny part of that was, well, let's use the teleportation circle and send Sprinkle with it. Because Sprinkle would count as a creature.
Yeah. I mean, it was either Sprinkle or Frumpkin.
Yeah. And Frumpkin, well,
not immortal is intelligent.
yeah. And he could just summon him with the next day or immediately.
Yeah. 10-minute ritual.
Yeah. And, well, no, you need the Warlock chain ability to be able to see through your anyone on the plane.
Yeah. Which would be amazing if they had something like that.
Yeah.
Because then
definitely
where
you
did
send
it go?
Definitely you send Frumpkin with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting note about teleport. The 7th level spell. You can still target a circle. So Caleb could have just targeted the circle in the temple, in the library. He didn't. He targeted the Cobalt Reserve using
Piece of Bo's outfit.
she just tore up. Yeah, you didn't need to chop that up.
It's okay. It's not consumed by the spell.
So funny. He rolled a 53.
Mm-hmm.
On the table, if you have an item, it is the same as if you were sending it to a circle. It will definitely get there.
Okay.
Matt seems to have indicated that that may not be the case.
Right. Well, we don't know how the table is skewed or if it's a different table because of where they're at and it messing with teleportational magic.
I hadn't considered that. I was just going off what was in the book.
Yeah.
Straight
from the book, yeah, it got there just fine.
Well, even if you move it down, so if Matt just says, if you teleport from here everything's one setting worse.
Right.
53 either gets it somewhat off course or to a similar location. And since he was targeting a Cobalt
reserve,
he could have sent it to any Cobalt reserve in the world.
It's the one in Tal'Dorei.
Yeah. Turns out Allura's getting that anyway. So it will be interesting to see if they got it.
Yeah.
Which also I was thinking about it and I was like, man, I should use some of this in my game. Just have stuff popping up.
Yeah.
Just have that be a random encounter. Just something just boom.
Yeah.
Someone or something just pops into existence.
A messed up teleportation happens. Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. They had the let's Mulan them. Nope, we're the Huns. But they do eventually get to Essek.
They do. And neither of us thought they were going to try. We didn't think.
Yeah, we considered it too far.
Yeah.
Well, for them to try to run.
Yeah.
To them.
But they do get there.
Yeah. Toffinator, yeah, they could have just dropped the bombs on him. Except that they take a minute to arm. So. But yes, that would be arming it in the sky and then dropping it. Yeah. Yeah. But yes, they do get to Essek. And he is somewhat pleased to see them.
He's hiding in self-exile.
Yeah.
And part of it is, as he mentions, is because of his association with them. The spotlight has been turned to them. So yeah, he's happy to see the people he likes. He's not happy that the people who are the reason he has to hide in self-exile are now visiting him. When word will probably get back that, oh, they stopped by.
Yeah, well, my favorite part of that whole thing was basically near the tail end of it. When they start talking about, we were thinking about going and looking for help from Trent or any surviving members of the assembly. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Vesteragna is dead. We were traveling with her and she's dead now. What?
So you were traveling with someone from there. They wound up dead on your watch and now you're coming to me.
Like, in my head, I was like, did you see a sign on my lawn that says Dead Wizard Storage? No, man, I didn't see that. Do you know why? You didn't see a sign on my lawn that says Dead Wizard Storage? Because storing dead wizards ain't my fucking business.
So yeah, I was looking at the video that's the spoof on the Anna Elsa song when they're kids. Will you help me hide a body?
Yeah. But yeah, Beth, did you have anything else?
Well, there was an interesting part where he mentions time travel.
Yes. Yes.
And, going back and just the ritual and them using Dunamancy and Aor and stuff. But every time we've heard about the ritual, including this time when he talks about the Drow Dunamancers using this ritual to go back in time, they're either never seen from again or they get back just long enough to turn into dust.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting.
Well, that is the dangle for Caleb.
Yeah.
And I think Essek may have his own reasons for wanting to go back in time.
To warn himself not to start a war?
Presumably. Or, I mean, his desires for time could be almost anything.
Yeah.
From altering his upbringing to altering, giving himself information to intercept the Mighty Nine before they get to the Bright Queen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he can, like, if he could go back in time, he could grab them when they are on their way to Asarius and say, I know you have the beacon. Give it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he can go back and be the wizard that was with the Echo Knight.
Yeah. Yeah. So he could want to do anything. But I think that there was definitely more for Liam.
Yeah.
More than even for Caleb. It was just for Liam.
Yeah.
Because Liam, in game and on talks, has said that Caleb has basically given up on that.
Yep.
And I think Matt needs him to pursue that for the end game narrative. I think. In much the same way that, Raceland traveling back in time was needed for the narrative.
Yeah. I can see that.
So, yeah. We'll see if that does go anywhere. But, yeah. Veth negs Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the interaction later, that she could have, if she would have remembered she had the spell before, would not have led to the negging later.
Yeah.
You mean you can't keep it frozen for like an hour? Well, what good are you? And then Caduceus, my favorite part of that whole thing. I love you like family. That doesn't make me feel better.
Yeah. Considering how we've seen interactions with him and his family.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. But Jester floats the idea of transmuting Essek.
Yep.
The way they did to Veth.
Yep.
And Essek doesn't seem keen on the notion. And Caleb says it won't change what's inside.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure part of the trade in Essek helping them with that spell was that he would get to copy it.
Yes, that was indeed part of the trade.
So Essek has the spell. He doesn't need Caleb to do it. He would just need the ingredients, which weren't that difficult to get.
Yeah.
If he wanted to. But I think...
Well, is it something you can cast on yourself? If you've got to be in the little clay coffin thing.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I mean, that would be the only reason is if you can only cast it on another creature, not yourself. That would be the only reason he would need Caleb, because that's someone he knows the spell.
The description of it when they cast it on Veth seemed to indicate that normally Caleb would be in total control of the spell.
But because he's doing it on... Yeah, you're right. I do remember that now.
I'm pretty sure you can cast it on yourself. So yeah, it's... I know how Caleb could assassinate Trent.
Okay.
He needs simulacrum.
Okay.
And then he transmutes his simulacrum into Aeolwulf.
Mm-hmm.
Or Astrid.
Yeah.
And then it gets close, and then Novus casts everything until it's dead.
That could happen, yeah.
It's... Well... I don't know if he'll do that. But in theory, through Pumat, they have been exposed to simulacrum and Tensor's transformation. And Caleb doesn't have Tensor's transformation.
Yeah.
And it's one of the 2 or 3 7th level transmutation spells.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we get the debate about when they are going to Nicodranas, that Mai Tais sound good. And Caduce is like, time is of the essence. And Bill's like, there's time for Mai Tais. And her and Yasha, her and Ashley, are just looking back at one another like, oh, we're going to Nicodranas. We can
have the date.
We can go to the fish market.
So many love.
At least that's what I read in that expression. Was, we go to the fish market.
Oh.
But Bo, weirdly, asked Dagon if he has any retirement plans.
Yep.
Which was out of the blue. Like, I didn't quite understand where that was coming from. It's the first time she's asked anyone that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just because she's thinking about it?
Maybe. Well, no, she kind of asked some of the, I guess not really retirement plans, but what next to the people on Rumblecusp.
Well, yeah. Well, that makes sense, though.
Yeah.
They just cleared out their brains, and they all got their memories back. So it makes sense to go, what are you going to do now? Because, you abandoned you have a family back there, you have a family back there, but you got together here, now you have a family here, what are you going to do? Like, those situations, that makes sense. But
buy a compound?
But the mercenary you've been traveling with, who hasn't really been emotionally connecting with you, he's been keeping his distance. I don't know, it seemed out of the blue. But I was excited by his answer. Because he said, oh, I've got my eye on the Bay of Gifts.
Yep.
Which is way down south in Marquette. And we've talked about how Campaign 3 is going to be set in Marquette.
Yep.
So immediately I was like, the first Campaign 2 crossover in PC in Campaign 3 is going to be Dagon.
Yep.
So I was excited for that.
Yep.
And on Talks, Liam dropped that he's already assigned.
Yeah, which... Yeah. Then that's what solidified. I know we had talked about, episode length way back in the beginning of this campaign. But that comment for me solidified we're on the downward angle of the last arc.
Yeah, we're reaching the climax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, if they're that far along that he's made the decision, they're probably more than just like thinking of ideas for characters.
Yeah, that's fair. Toffee, it's a good point. Thinking she has a future is probably new. That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, we estimated 175 episodes.
Between 150 and 175.
So they've got up to, on the outside, 50 episodes.
Yeah.
To finish up, get to level 20, defeat the Tarask.
Right. Although I'm not sure we're going to go that far.
Yeah, I am not sure either.
And, and Matt's even said he'd be totally okay ending around level 16, 17.
Yeah.
Which is maybe, only 20 episodes?
Yeah.
10 to 12 episodes a level.
Yeah.
So on our low end of episode numbers, if they end early, high end if they go to 20.
Yeah. Which brings us to the level up at the end of the episode.
Yes, level 14.
I was so mad because in preparing my thoughts for last week's episode, I thought about mentioning the possibility of level up.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I just sort of brushed it off and didn't, and they leveled up. I was so mad. I was like, we could have said they were going to level up. But
I was expecting it any episode now, but I was just like, it'll happen when it happens.
Well, the thing is, we did kind of call it in a sense because we said they would probably level up when they got to Aor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so,
true.
In a way, we kind of did. Just a long time ago.
Yeah, just several episodes ago. We didn't say it was going to be this exact... We didn't say episode 124. We just said when they get to Aor.
Yeah.
And that's when they got to Aor.
Yeah. So...
but yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
I just went across the bottom and top when I wrote them down here. But Bo, big step for her, gets Diamond Soul.
Yeah.
Which means she is now proficient in every saving throw. And if she fails one, it says when you fail. So you already know the result. It's not like you can, it's one of those where you have to re-roll before.
Yep.
You can spend a key point to re-roll the save.
Yep. So it's just like the Fighter's Indomitable, only...
For everything.
For everything. Well, the Indomitable is for everything too. But you only get it once a day.
Oh, yeah. And this is however many key points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Up to 14.
Yeah. That refresh on a short rest.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can just spend an action if that still fails to end Frightened Charmed.
Yeah, exactly. So, monks do monk shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Caduceus, and going to throw Jester in here too because it's just the cleric thing.
Yeah.
Get Destroy Undead CR3. So, if they fail the turn, they're destroyed if they're 3 or lower. And then Jester, her Divine Strike goes up in damage if she ever decides to use that.
Which hopefully...
I mean, she has owned a shield from the beginning. She's owned a hand axe from the beginning.
It's a magical hand axe.
It's a magical hand axe. She had it enchanted. It's a +1 hand axe that can now, on a Divine Strike, do an additional 2d8 poison damage.
So when we were talking melee people to get in to fight Lucian,
Jester,
she's on the list.
Jester is arguably as capable, if not more than Ford.
Yeah.
As a melee combatant.
Yeah.
Um,
And because I don't think that 2d8 would be affected by his anti-magic.
I guess that would be a GM call.
Although he wasn't letting Caduceus channel his divinity either.
Yeah. But all you gotta do is use your movement to move around behind him.
Yep.
Whack!
Yeah.
He turns to face you. Move to turn around.
But yeah, because they really need somebody who is not a sentinel paired with a sentinel.
Yeah. Yeah, you put Jester and Yasha on someone, Bo and Ford on someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then both sentinels have someone they can take advantage of, you know.
Yeah.
So good. Yasha, another huge ability. She gets Rage Beyond Death from her Path of the Zealot.
Yeah.
I know this makes you sad because you want her to die so they can do it. But she can still die.
That's true.
But while she's raging, she does not die. It does not go unconscious until the rage ends. She still has to make the saving throws.
Yeah.
But she's going to stay up and stay fighting until that rage goes away.
Yeah. Which is how Grog defeated Kern.
Grog wasn't a Path of the Zealot. This is a Path of the Zealot.
Oh no, he had endless rage.
Yeah.
That's the similar ability.
Yes. So, yeah. Yasha. Now, this is a two-edged sword because Yasha is also the most likely one to be mind controlled.
Yeah. That was the benefit of Grog and the Berserker. He can't be mind controlled while he's raging.
The frenzied yeah, so that's another huge one, especially when fighting the Tomb Takers.
Yeah.
Veth, Blind Sense for rogues. She is now aware of any hidden or invisible creature within 10 feet of her. Period. End of story. She knows they are there.
Yeah. Which is going to be hilarious when Matt says, Veth, you notice something. Something you can't see, but you're aware of its presence. And then Veth is going to go, Ford, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yes. And she also gets another spell.
Yes.
At this level.
And I think this is one of the levels where it doesn't have to be.
This is the last level where it doesn't have to be of enchantment or illusion.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she is now officially one higher level than Vax ever was.
Yeah.
She is more roguey than Vax.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was he 12 or 13?
12, I think.
Yeah, because he was 12, 7, 1.
Yeah.
Because he had 7 levels of Paladin. So yeah. That is the highest level rogue we've seen.
Yeah.
Caleb gets Master Transmuter.
This is a big one.
So, with his Philosopher's Stone, he can now change a non-magical item into another non-magical item of 5 feet cube or less, of similar mass. It takes 10 minutes, but it's basically fabricated on steroids without a spell slot.
Yeah.
He can do a full restore, remove any and all curses, poisons, and diseases, and restore the person to their full hit points. And now if you couple this like with one of the clerics casting Aid, because that increases their hit point maximum.
Yep.
And
or Hero's Feast.
Yeah. And that could be a saver. Oh, shit. Yasha's almost dead. Bo, let me take my action and just bring her back to full. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's great. Number 3, I'm going to skip this one because the last one I wanted. He can de-age someone 3D 10 years. This to a minimum of 13 years old. Does not affect their lifespan, though.
Yeah.
However, 3D 10 years younger. He can fix what happened to Jester, like you said.
Yep.
He can just mess with people. You know.
He can also make himself younger.
He can make
to be more age appropriate.
Yep.
For Widow Jest.
Yeah. Lots of fun stuff that can be done with that.
The last one.
He can raise dead.
Yeah.
He can do it without a spell slot once a day, without it being in his book. He still does need the diamonds, because it does not say without components. But it is always useful to have another member who can do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Rose. Yeah, it's a big one. And I am so well, he couldn't do both. Unfortunately, he couldn't raise dead and then restore them to full hit points. But one of the clerics could raise dead,
and then he can restore them to full hit points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. He could, in theory, raise dead on Yasha without the components.
Yes, he could. Because it doesn't require components to raise her.
Okay, that's the situation I'm looking forward to now.
Caleb being the one to raise dead on Yasha.
Yep.
I mean, that would be great.
Yep. And Ford the Mystery.
For the mystery, he's like, I don't know which one I want to level up. So, if he goes Warlock, he did roll the fewer number of hit points. It was a 5. I think it was a 5 and an 8 were the 2 rolls, plus his con mod, so 10 or 13. 10 hit points, not bad, especially for a D8 character.
Yeah.
Not going to lie. He gets Mystic Arcanum, which would give him a 6th level spell. And one thing I overlooked when I was writing down my notes, he gets the 3rd Warlock spell slot at this level.
That's
so
right.
He would have a 3rd, 5th level casting if he took Warlock, and a once a day 6th level casting.
Yeah.
And then, if he still wants to go back and forth, his next 2 levels are ASIs.
Oh, yeah. Because you do either 8th Warlock
or 4th. No, 12th Warlock.
Or 12th, yeah, 12th and 4th. Yeah.
So he may go...
And 2 back-to-back ASIs is really nice.
Yeah.
Like, when you do that, it's so nice to be, like... Because you have to put it off, you know? And you feel like you're behind. And then when you get 2 back-to-back, when you're multi-classing like that, when you get your ASIs, you just feel like, finally caught up to everybody.
Yeah. It's just like, you're just like, okay, I'm trucking, I'm doing okay. Oh yeah, baby! Yeah, you just like, it's a great feeling when you get back-to-back ASIs with multi-classing.
I hadn't considered that.
Now, his choice of Mystic Arcanum spell is going to say a lot.
I like Investiture of Air for him.
Investiture of Air. Investiture of Ice could be an upgraded Armor of Agathis.
Yeah.
Investiture of Stone if he wants to play on his name. Soul Cage.
Yeah.
Could be a good one. You had mentioned using it on Lucian.
Yeah.
And my response was, I want to see him pick Soul Cage and still claim he's good. Because you don't use that spell for good intentions. You don't.
Yeah.
At best, you have darker gray intentions.
He basically becomes Mum-Ra with Jaga in the lamp. And I'm sure all of you watched that version of Thundercats because Matt was in it.
Yep.
Rose, it is arguably the stronger choice. Except for when you consider that the ASI he can use to up his AC, which he's been worried about, or his strength, which he hasn't really been worried about, but
he could split it
he could.
And end up with 1/1 in strength and dex, or dex and wisdom.
Yeah.
Cancel out,
Yeah. Because he only needs 1 in strength to get to +2.
Right, and he only needs 1 in dex to get to +1.
Yeah. So he could split it. Or, like...
If he's going to go straight ASI and increase attributes, he is better off splitting it.
Yeah. But it's also possible that he picks up a feat with it.
Yeah.
And
I mean...
Mage Slayer, Spell Sniper.
Mage Slayer would be great, especially if he's going to get up in there with that sword.
Yeah. Especially if they are planning on taking on the Assembly.
Or the Tomb Takers.
Otis is really the only one that was casting.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But Spell Sniper with his Eldritch Blast, I mean, it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Especially because he has one of the Eldritch Blast invocations.
And Spell Sniper will give him another damage attack roll cantrip.
Yeah. Which he could take Shocking Grasp.
Or, one thing that Warlocks are hurting for is invocations. He could grab a new invocation.
Oh yeah, with the feat from Tasha's.
Yeah.
Which, if he did that, that splits the difference on the Warlock Paladin choice.
Mm-hmm.
He takes the Paladin level. He doesn't get much out of it except that he gets another invocation.
Yeah. But if he does go Paladin, his next level he gets extra attack.
Yeah.
So.
But that doesn't do much for him because he's Pact of the Blade.
Yeah.
Except that when he, in theory, if he were to level into Warlock again, maybe he could change his pact.
Yeah. Pact of the Blade. I actually believe it's an invocation that you have to get the extra attack with Pact of the Blade.
Oh, is it? So he could give up that, then?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is an invocation.
Yeah. So he could switch out that invocation for another one if he gets once he gets the extra attack.
Or when he next levels Warlock. Because you kind of have to level up in that class to change anything like that. Yeah, I expect the date to happen in this Thursday's episode.
Yeah.
I expect some kind of personal bombshell to get dropped.
From who?
I don't know. My gut says Jester or Ford. I think Jester talks to her mom, and we will finally get where Jester is at, vis-a-vis Forrester and Widow Jest.
Yeah.
I think she goes to her mom and she will say, "How did you know Dad was the one? Do you want him now?" Like, oh my God, Toffinger, yes, it would be the Valentine's episode.
Yeah.
It's almost like they planned it.
Damn those writers.
These writers are good, man.
But yes, it will be the Valentine's episode. It will be character development, not necessarily story development heavy.
Yeah. Oh, also, before we go, just to leave you with this stinger, in the direction that Lucian and them were traveling, I'm pretty sure is where the ocean is. And they have the bag with the cloven crystal. And Ford told them a giant sea serpent's looking for them. So, who here doesn't think Lucian doesn't just go,
Only because I think Lucian tries to pray to whatever the serpent is, talk to, and see if he can make a deal for, I got what you want. You want to help me with these bastards?
it's fair. Yeah. But anyway, guys, we will see you next week. Bye.